I guess just to start in the most general sense, sort of the 1,000 foot view of where you feel like the is at right now, coming off the Dartmouth weekend.
Yeah, I think we feel pretty good. We're back into it now, off the break, and would have liked to take some more points from Dartmouth. That was a really evenly matched series and took an overtime power play goal and a shootout to kind of decide those winners. So, but ultimately, like we feel good. We're back into it. We really like the way we're playing. I think our preparation has been really good and be kind of nice to have, as many games at home this month as we do. So we're pretty excited about that.
At this point in the year, you start talking a lot about like your sophomores become juniors, your first years become sophomores, or at least you hope it's that way. And it seems like that is happening with some of your players. Do you feel like the young ones in the group are really coming along here as you get to the second half?
Yeah, I think they were some of our best players this past weekend. We've relied on them really heavily and yeah, I love that group. I honestly didn't know our first years very well because I came in last August and hadn't been part of their recruiting process. So the last year has really been, getting to know everybody, but especially those guys who I didn't know when they were going through it. And they're an awesome group. Like our first years have taken on a ton of responsibility on the ice. I think they've helped push us forward in a lot of ways, whether that's, in the gym, in the classroom, kind of in everything they do. They're really happy to be at Harvard and they want to help get this program to new heights. So, I love those guys and, our freshmen and sophomores, like you said, they're becoming older players, more mature players, and you can see it on the ice.
On the older side of your players, because of COVID and everything that happened with a canceled year, it's been a long time since players have gotten to play 100 games at Harvard. I think you've got three right now. You're about to have four. How valuable is that this year, where like even though you had seniors last year, they were still not as experienced as you hoped seniors would be?
Yeah, I think that experience is really important. I hope everybody plays 100 games in our program because what that means is they were here for 4 years. They stayed healthy. We like a smaller roster where we're relying on everybody. So hopefully that you see that more often. But like you said, with COVID, kind of threw that off, and those ones who have hit that or are close, and even really our whole senior group, I think the experience they bring, even just day to day in practice, they know what's expected. They're really helping us along in a lot of different ways. But yeah, that experience is huge. You can't really replace those minutes out on the ice. I think you see that from Mia Biotti, Jenna McDonald, Ellie Bayard, like those guys. We rely really heavily on them too, and their experience has helped us a lot.
Your goaltenders, obviously Ainsley was, amazing on Saturday. I guess if you could kind of characterize the situation at the moment, they've both been good, so I'm sure that's a good kind of thing to have for you, but just how you feel about Ainsley and Emily.
Yeah, I think they're two of our hardest working players. And when your hardest working players are in the net, that's gonna be a good thing. So I think they prepare at a really high level. They're both in great shape. And we said from the beginning of the year in the fall, I think we looked at the first semester and we talked about it with those guys like, hey, we're gonna do this together by committee, both gonna have opportunity, compete during the week and make each other better. And then, whoever's in the net, obviously we want them to do a great job. And, I think going into the second half, it's really much the same. They're a really good team, they're a good duo, and they're really different too. Emily's probably the smallest or close to it goalie in Division 1 hockey. And for her that doesn't matter. She doesn't care about that. But when you face her and she's done a really good job because she's small, holding her feet, being really aggressive. Then you play Ainsley the next night. She's, huge in there. She's like close to 6 feet tall, at least it feels like it. And just plays a little bit different. She likes to play the puck more. They do different things. So to be able to kind of give teams different looks is, I think, an advantage for us.
Just two more for me, and then I'll pass it along. Um, how do you prepare for a week coming up like this from like a practice perspective, where it's just Friday, but then the two on Tuesday, and then Friday, Saturday the following week? Do you have to do anything different to make sure your team's, in good shape for those games?
Yeah, I think one thing is that it's a huge advantage for us that we're not in school. we don't go back to school till like the 26th or something like that, that Monday. So to be playing the Bean Pot now in January when we don't have school is much different than when it was in February. So we view that advantageously. And then I think it did work out to only be playing Friday. So this week has really been the same for us, but we'll get in a Saturday practice, which is kind of nice instead of just the Monday practice. So we got Saturday, Monday, and then we'll be ready for the Bean Pot, and then that next weekend playing twice. It's just honestly, it's about managing our recovery and our energy levels, but it's also like we're really focused on getting two lifts in every week, even with the Beanpot game. So we've found ways to do that with off days and lifts on Sunday next week. So it's really kind of planning ahead and then just letting them roll. I mean, there's nothing better for the players. We always used to say, like, can you believe this? We play 5 or 6 games in 11 days and it's the best. It's the coaches who worry if they're all right and all that, and the players, like, they love it. So it's going to be a really fun stretch.
Awesome. And then just lastly on Maine, first time since you've been on the staff that you and Maine have played. I know there's a connection between when you were at Duluth and she was an assistant in the same league, but Harvard and Maine have only played once in the last 22 years, I think. So just any reason why you felt like it was good to get them on the schedule?
Yeah, I mean they have some sweet jerseys. I gotta say that.
Okay.
I've always
Fair.
loved Maine's jerseys. No, but it's yeah, we wanted to make sure that we had we're in an unbelievable location to be able to play obviously Hockey East, but a few different leagues and not have to go too far. So started talking to Maine pretty early on, and they'll come here next year as well. So, just trying to have matchups that we haven't had as often. I didn't know we had played them so infrequently, but being able to stay close, but also get an opponent from a different league. Obviously, we have a few of those coming up with the Bean Pot too. But yeah, it'll be fun and should be tight matchup.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Coach. I'll give it to Craig.
Thanks.
Thanks, Laura, for the time. Really appreciate it. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Could you sort of give us a little bit more on the goalies and maybe what goes into how you make a decision who's going to play in a specific game?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So our staff has talked about this quite a bit. You always prepare for, I think, a few games ahead, and try not to get too far ahead of yourself in terms of team preparation. But in our goalie decisions, we do try to look, a few games out, and we've had kind of different things. Like it depends how the week goes, how the goalies are feeling. Sometimes we go into the weekend knowing it's going to be 1-1. Sometimes we want to see how Friday night goes. Emily has played a little bit last year, so we know some of her matchups against other teams. I mean, there's kind of a lot that goes into that thinking, but I think in the first half and now in the second half too, we do know that we want them both to play. They've both, more than earned that. I mean, I couldn't say enough about those guys. We're through 15 games. Through 15 games last year, we had scored almost the exact same amount of goals, might be one or two, or one more, one less. We've given up 15 fewer goals in 15 games, which is, I mean, that's a huge number, a goal per game. That's 30 on the season if we stay at that rate. So, I mean, I think that says a lot about our group and how we've embraced defending and being frustrating to play against, layers down low, tough, more physical. But our goalies are a huge part of that. And so those decisions, I mean, they keep making them pretty hard on us. So I hope it stays that way. And like I said, we'll keep relying on both of them.
Couldn't agree more on Maine's jerseys. If you scheduled them just to see the jerseys, I would co-sign on that wholeheartedly. Can we do just a power play check-in before I pass it off to Jess and give us an update on what's going on there and if there is any developments?
Yeah, last week, we worked a lot on it. And we got rewarded with a goal. Funny enough, it's not how you would draw one up for sure, but I think one thing that we recognized that it needed at the break was just more time in practice, and whether that's, the group going out early, staying out late, and they've been great at that. We've thrown a couple face-off plays in and haven't connected, but had some really good opportunities on that against Dartmouth. So that's something we'll keep doing. Personnel wise, pretty similar. There's been probably 12, 11 or 12 players who have played on the power play, and it'll, well, it's always week to week kind of making those decisions. But right now, off the break and having given it more time last week, trying to, let those guys cook a little bit. And, we know, like, we want to score on the power play. That's a huge opportunity for us to put pucks in the net. Certainly easier said than done, but we'll keep working at it. And I think, some of the face-off plays, some of our breakout details and our releases we're getting a lot better. And sometimes those take time, but for us and our mindset, I think we're going into the second half and kind of starting over. So I think our percentage per se is like 20% right now for us. I can't remember how many we had on Saturday technically, but we've got one in a few chances, and we like that, and we want to keep that rolling.
And my last one before the Dartmouth weekend, I saw that Zoe had talked about this is her favorite time of year in the kind of the college hockey schedule, not just because there's no school going on in the sense that you get to play, but also because it's just a focus on the group coming together and getting to do things off the ice and connect more. So along those lines, I'm curious what some of the things that you guys have done as a group, maybe to try to come together more and allow the team to just keep growing.
Yeah, good question. It's an interesting balance because they are we talk a lot about being full-time athletes and being pros, and really committing to every piece and every detail of what we're trying to do. But we also, you don't want to give them too much time where, we're sort of, in charge of that. Like, they have other things they want to do and kind of some time to do them. So we've kind of stuck to doing one thing a week. We had a painting class that we took together on Tuesday, which was really fun. I mean, some incredible paintings and some not so incredible paintings by the end, mine being one of them. I wish I had it behind me. It's still out in our lounge, but that was really fun. Just kind of a different thing to do. Our instructor was awesome. And we had a lot of fun with that. We had the team impact ping pong last night, and that was kind of, also on the schedule, and we're going to be having a team impact player join our team, which we're really excited about. And then next week we're going to, I can't think of the name of it, but like a golf simulator kind of place. So just a couple team activities that we're able to do, and you kind of see what people are like, what they have to say in a different environment, which is fun. And our group just really enjoys, like Zoe said, spending time together and kind of doing different things together. And I might be forgetting a few, but just try to stay busy. And I know we have some community service initiatives too, kind of in the works, and we're excited to get into some of the schools in Cambridge in the next couple weeks and read to those kids. So just a lot we can do, and like Zoe said, it's a pretty fun time of the year.
Well, I appreciate the insight, coach, and the time today.
Thank you.
That's okay. Well, I guess, Coach, who's the best painter on the team? I have to know that first.
Yeah, so Jenna McDonald is kind of our in-house artist. She's taken a bunch of creative classes at Harvard. She's like, that side of her brain is pretty impressive. We talk about that with her a lot. But so she was, I mean, hers stood out. Annie Dingus was kind of a surprising one that I thought hers turned out well. And it's funny, you have the people who really just lean in and enjoy it, and then the ones who can't enjoy it because they're really worried about how it's going to end up. And so we had some good conversations about that. We kept being told by our instructor to trust the process and take a step back, and you don't see as many of the imperfections. So there's a lot of like life lessons in there, and the team enjoyed it. But Jenna McDonald's unbelievable, super talented.
That's awesome. Well, in year two, it seems like you're the type of group that, likes obviously likes to spend a lot of time together, really foundations themselves on tradition. In this year two of the program for you, how do you think you've been able to establish or continue to build a culture within your team, and how pleased are you with where it's at?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to put into words because it's one of those things that you chip away at every single day. It either, keeps you up at night in terms of thinking of planning and things that you want to do, or you wake up in the morning like ready to attack it. But it's also one of those things that doesn't change overnight, and you kind of have to step back every once in a while and see how far it's come. And that's been extremely fulfilling, I think, for our staff to see it. And in terms of how that looks, it's your team's different every year. And so when our first years came in, I think they've been a big part of moving us forward. They're really excited to be here. Some of them were parts of rebuilds in high school and, really like had a great experience with that. They want to be relied upon. They're not afraid of where we're at right now. They just want to help us get to a new place. And I think from a cultural standpoint, we keep it simple in terms of what we look at. Like we will always look at work ethic and character. Like if we're putting our best effort out there and being a good teammate, like good things are how you can apply that to everything, every conversation we have. And sometimes those have been hard conversations. I certainly don't shy away from those. And we ask our leaders and really all of our players to do the same. And anytime you're having a hard conversation, it's coming from a place of wanting the best for this team and this program. And I think our players have really leaned into that and been great at that. And the foundation of being able to do that is the relationships. So they have really strong ones, and we continue to work on getting to know them better and be able to do that. But that's the foundation, and then it's just like let's be as good as we can be every single day. We want to find our best, and that means getting better in basically every way we can. And I think our group has really taken on that challenge. And from a results perspective, it doesn't necessarily look all that different, but we're right there. And, you feel it every day. I think we practice at a much higher level. Like I mentioned earlier, we're giving up a goal less a game. You don't see that. You see that with teams that are ready to make something happen. I couldn't be more proud of our group for that.
Now, I guess this might be kind of a loaded question for you, but what do you feel the biggest adjustment for you coaching wise has been, just in the past 2 seasons, or the biggest thing that you've learned so far?
Yeah, I think the biggest adjustment in general was just like, life. You're moving across the country and you're in a completely different place. And Duluth, it's quite a bit different from Boston. And so those were honestly the biggest changes. I think in terms of going from being an assistant coach to a head coach, like I felt really ready for that, and I give Maura Kroll a ton of credit. Actually in this office before we played him on Friday night, we had an emotional moment. I just said to her, you're the reason that I'm here, and how fun that we get to play against each other. But in terms of the real adjustment from a coaching perspective, a few things come to mind. Honestly, a big one is not playing the same opponent back to back. That's how it was in the WCHA. And, there's sometimes conversations about if the ECAC would ever do that. I'm not sure, but, that it's very different. I think, you're preparing for one team. You stay in one place. You tend to get the same officials night to night. Some of those things, it is a bit different in our league. So, and some advantages to that are, if you have a great game, you got to turn your focus, and it's a whole new team. You don't necessarily get to rest on that as a player. And if you don't have a great game, well, it's a whole new slate tomorrow against a new opponent. So I think from a coaching, scouting, teaching perspective, that's been quite a bit different, and just trying to find the positives in that and lean into them as a coach.
I love that moment with Maura. I was actually going to ask a little bit about that, but that's nice to hear. I guess just in terms of the traditions that your team does do, the pointing to each other, to the assister after the goal scored. I think Shannon Hollins mentioned something about like right before you go on the ice, you turn all the lights off in the locker room and let the logo light shine. Is that still a thing? And how much do you like those traditions?
Yeah, I think, we have a really strong history. We have great tradition in this program. I think it's also important for us, year to year and even day to day, week to week, as a staff and as a group, and when we're meeting with captains, to really we've taken a close look at a lot of things that we do, and we always will, and just say, does this serve us? Because if it does, let's keep doing it. Does it make us better? Let's keep doing it. If it doesn't, then we can move on and forget it, and okay, that happened. But if it's, if we're starting to get too superstitious, or things start to get in the way, let's just leave that behind and focus on what we really want to and need to. So I think we've done some of that too, which has been, I think, freeing for some players. But by and large, like some of those things that, we have our alumni weekend coming up next weekend, and some of the things that, players talk about that they did, that, you come to find out they're still doing it, like the lights in the locker room. I'm not in there at that time, so I didn't know if they still flash the lights the way we did, but like I think a lot of those things do carry on and you have fun with it. And Meredith, our associate head coach, has commented that the song that they play before, she recognizes from when she was at Providence and could hear it in the opponent locker room. So, some of those things that have stayed, I mean, that's 20 plus years that's been going on. So to have that, I mean, not a lot of programs, a lot of programs aren't even that old. So to be able to kind of have that, those galvanizing sorts of, pointing to players, there's been a lot of conversation. When did that start? And we think it's the early 2000s. And some of those conversations will happen when our alums are in town next weekend, and you hear stories. And I think just leaning on that tradition, and also being really proud of continuing to be as cutting edge as we possibly can, I think is something that, we focus on a lot.
Do you know what that song is, or is that confidential for the
I'm
team?
not sure if I'm allowed to say, so I probably shouldn't, but I'll find out from the players if that is like a clean song and everything. But I'll have to TBD on that one.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. That was awesome. I'll turn things over to Bridget, Laura now.
Hi, Coach. And
Hi.
let's Laura, do you have somewhere to go? You can start if you need to.
I think Laura's just listening. She just
Okay. All right, sounds good. Then Coach, I will get to my questions. So, when I talked to you earlier in the year, it was actually when you guys were about to play Providence, and you told me that at that point, when you're doing your game planning for a series or for a weekend, you're focusing mostly on yourselves. Is that still where you are, and where do you find benefit in that, in going about it that way?
Yeah, I mean, and in that case, we were playing the same team back to back. But like I said a few minutes ago, because we don't usually, I think, I've actually had this conversation with Maura quite a bit, just having been in the WCHA and now here. I think we could focus more on our opponent when we played the same one. Now that you play two, and in this weekend's case, obviously we just have the one game, but it is harder to really hone in on scouting. And when you're going to play a completely different team, some of the things that you would do when you play back to back are just not as important from a scouting perspective. But in terms of our team and where we're at, yeah, I think we will always look at power play, penalty kill, face-offs. Outside of that, I think it gets to be a lot of information, and we are already you know there's already a lot of information in terms of how we want to play. Especially when you look at, like, once you're at one place for a while, your seniors are teaching your first years, your juniors are teaching your first years, how it's like second nature. And I think it's probably somewhat second nature for our group now that's been here for a year plus, but it's not 4 years of having the same coaching staff and same terminology and how you want to play. So we're still working through that. And so I just think it's really important for us to, for the most part, stay focused on us, and, not overload with scouting information, unless it's, even when you're watching scout, say you're watching a face-off formation. I mean, you're really focused on, like, what are you doing? The players, they even say that at the highest levels, NHL, PWHL. It's like, just tell me where I need to go, and what the read is, on where a player will be, but you don't necessarily need to know every last detail about the opponent. So we'll keep staying focused on ourselves for the most part.
And to go back to like some of the team building stuff, I know that the day that I was in Providence, they were having like a full on dance session before the game. Like, high energy. I'm pretty sure they were like full on singing I Want to Dance with Somebody and they were in a great mood before the game and can you just talk about how, that is that like a ritual as well and does that just kind of show you how tight your group is and how positive they are?
Yeah, I think you know, we have a lot of personality, and I think that's a good thing. I think sometimes Harvard and the Ivies, it's like, oh, what a bunch of stiffies, and we're not that, certainly. Just watch our pregame warm up. And I think that's how it's been here for a long time. You think of some of the big personalities in the early 2000s, and some of them will be back for alumni weekend. And Lauren McAuliffe comes to mind, like great hockey player, but probably like one of the funniest people you could ever meet. And so there's a lot of that, and I think there always has been. We've always kind of wanted to be loose and have fun, and some of those pregame routines, they ebb and flow over the years, but I think it is, we did something similar, whatever, 15 years ago. But I think for our group, they lean into that. They like to be able to let loose. Their lives are they expect a lot of themselves, whether it's in the Harvard community, in the classroom, at the rink. So when they can kind of let loose, they enjoy the dancing. They enjoy rip-offs, they call them, where they go back and forth with music, lyrics. Kaylee McDonald and Angelica McDanis are like unbelievable at that. So that's a pretty fun competition that they do that they get pretty into. And it just shows like it's pretty fun when we're on a long road trip and we stop for a walk and a coffee bite to eat and they start doing the rip off. It's pretty fun to watch and they enjoy each other a lot.
That's funny. And I saw a feature on this. Maria Pape is like a legitimate like singer, like has performed at what was it like Carnegie Hall or something like that?
Yeah. I haven't heard her sing before, but we're working at that. Yeah, like that's the top of the music world, right? I mean, I don't know, that's pretty impressive. She's a super talented kid, has a lot of she's one of the most interesting people in our group, like the places she's been, the things she's done, the languages she speaks. It's pretty impressive and yeah, she's a cool kid. It's I can't believe she's like, 19, 20 years old with everything that she's done.
Do you know what languages she speaks?
She's in Chinese class. She's I think English and Chinese are, but like Chinese, like that's a hard language. She went to China this summer. She was in a club for that. I mean, yeah, she for sure those two. There might be one other one. But she has some Chinese friends who she'll talk to on the phone. I mean, she's pretty legit.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask about Kaylee McDonald as well. I didn't know she was a good painter, but I wanted to talk about her on the ice and just the role that she's had for you this year because I know, you look through the stat sheet, you see that some of the lower classmen like Kaylee are putting up, they're taking a big share of the points. Can you talk about her as a player for us?
Yeah, Kale has great vision. She sees the ice extremely well. And I think that's part of what makes her a really good power play player. She's running the top for us right now, but she can play on the flank and see things from there. And she has a really good shot too. She's got a good one-timer. She can step into, there was a goal against Princeton where Paige Lester gave her a flank to flank, high to low diagonal pass. That's really hard to catch across your body and get back to net. And she wired it and scored on that goal. So she's really strong, has a great backhand. I mean, we used her in the shootout. She's an automatic pick for us in the shootout because she's got a bag of tricks for sure. And for a D, that's they're usually not your go-to on the shootout. But great hands, great vision, just offensively super talented. And I think we've continued to see her grow defensively. Right now she's on our second D pair, but wherever she is, we know we're gonna rely on her and she's on the PK. I mean, she's in every spot, and I think that's kind of like you mentioned, really important for our younger players right now because that's the best way to learn. And she's a fun kid, super smart, and really able to apply things quickly. Even yesterday in practice, had a conversation with her about how quickly she was applying things from rep to rep in practice. And anytime you can do that, you're just going to get better and better.
And who would you say, because I mean, this happens every year, turnover, and then you guys have had injuries as well, but who would you say just a few players who have carried some of the biggest workloads this year?
Yeah, I mean, Ella Lucia is one of the I always say Lucia, so we've had that conversation recently. But Lucia it is. But she's been probably the biggest one. I mean, losing Gwen Lapp midway through was tough. She's our top returning scorer, was in a ton of spots, first line center, taking all the important draws. And that's really where Ella's now been put and stepped into that role. So she's absorbed a ton of minutes. Mia Biotti and Maria Pape on the back end and Jenna McDonald getting, and even Kira Lai, she's a first year player as well, but she's been in a lot of spots late in games, which is good for us. So, the D end there, those four, and up front, Ella and Ellie Bayard, we know we can put her on the wing, and when you're down, like she'll get out there and block a shot. She'll use her quickness and get out to the point. But she's got some offensive upside to her too, and kind of has a great engine to go be able to get down the sheet and try to help us score if we need a goal too. So those guys come to mind. I know I mentioned a lot of people. It's probably because that's our team, like we're trying to use our depth. We're playing four lines, three sets of D. We think that's, to our advantage, and we know that, and two goalies too. We know we're gonna do it by committee. So that's our group right now, and probably part of why we're really close and enjoying it as much as we are.
Last one for me. When I talked to you last time, you also mentioned that, like, I think I asked you what are some of the changes that you had to make when you took over, and you said that you started a defensive overhaul when you first got here. How do you think that's going? How would you characterize like the way that I know you mentioned how goaltending was a big part in limiting the goals this year compared to last year, but how do you feel like your defensive overhaul has gone?
Yeah, well, 15 fewer goals is probably a good start. Or maybe it means I did a horrible job in the first year, but it's been good. Like I think it's taken some time. When you're playing man on man defense, it's which is what it was before. It's tough for energy levels, I think. It's really hard to be efficient. It's hard to your shifts can get long and there it can take a lot out of you. But it's pretty straightforward too. And so when we came in and kind of changed the way we're playing in that end, it's tough, like old habits die hard, so to speak. There's some things that, and we've talked a ton to our D and centers, especially about this. There's some things you just naturally do because you've been doing it for a long time, and you follow a player into a space that you don't need to, and that layering that we have out of the corners and how much help we get from our wings now. I think it's helped us get out of the zone a lot quicker. Our shifts are more efficient. Nothing good happens after 40 seconds in your shift. So if your shift length is more than 40 seconds, or if your average shift length is more than 40 seconds, I would say, it's probably not a good thing. And we've really, our shift length has gone way down. Our average shift length has gone way down, especially for our players who, especially for our D, I should say. So, yeah, if we're giving up fewer goals, that's a good thing. Obviously, we always want to score more, and that's been a huge focus too. I think we've spent a ton of time in the offensive zone, and we're right there, But from defensively, I think like we've been in nearly every game, and I think we're commanding respect in our league and beyond in that way, because it's going to be tough to play against us, and really happy with where we're at defensively right now.